Oh, we're live. Thank goodness. Boy. Um, Let me send a tweet. A lot going on in the St. Louis area tonight. We got the Chiefs, we got the Blues, and we've got the World Series. Anyway, welcome to Missouri Tigers Live. My name is Zach Cornelius. I'm here as I am every week to talk about your Missouri Tigers. You can find me on Twitter at PsychoZ50, PsychoZ_50. Like and subscribe, guys. You know, season's looking tough, looking bleak, but it'll be okay. Like, I'll still be here. I'll still watch games. We have a bye week this week. Thank goodness. I'm going to go to a Halloween party at my girlfriend's house, and yeah, we're going to have fun. So, good timing on the bye week, SEC schedule makers. Anyway, let's get down to business here on Missouri Tigers Live. The banners are blue today. I did not think I meant to do that. Blue's a nice color. It's my favorite color. It's kind of cool because it's a bye week, so we're cooling off after their symbolism. Anyway, still, what a gut punch Saturday was. The defense just played so incredibly well. It's a weird narrative coming out of Saturday about, like, I think it was Dan Orlovsky from ESPN, which that's not surprising. ESPN people don't watch college football. Talking about how, like, Diego Pavia should be the Heisman winner based off, like, what he's done so far. And look, Diego Pavia is great, but, like, he wasn't good Saturday. Like, he was pretty mediocre. Like, Matt Zollers finished with more passing yards than he did. I mean, 10 for 19 for $129 and only 20 yards rushing on 8 carries. The Mizzou defense, I have given a lot of crap to Corey Batoon on my show. Because it has felt like if your quarterback doesn't suck, you're going to be able to put up some points. You're going to be able to move some yards. You're going to get some clutch plays. Look, the Mizzou gave up the 180-yard run. That's going to happen when you play really good teams. And outside of that, I mean, Vandy got a third of their yards on one play where Dalen Carnell got held and probably makes the tackle. Probably. He's not great in coverage, but he's pretty sure tackler. We got a third of their yards and like 60% of their rushing yards. So I thought the Mizzou defense was incredible. They got an interception on a batted ball. Good for Damon Wilson. Vandy was only 3 of 10 on third down, which is crazy. They didn't go for a fourth down. 6.8 yards per pass, 5.2 yards per rush. But you take away that 80 yards on one play. Vandy's down to 56 yards on 25 carries, which is barely over 2. So it sucks how well the defense played, and it came out. Bo sprained ankle, issue with some ligaments, probably out for the rest of the year. So, we'll see what Zollers looks like. We'll talk more about Matt here in a little bit. But going back a little bit through that game, you know what? Let's just get into it. Kirby Moore, he's got to go. There's a narrative around Mizzou, and I talked about this Saturday, that Drink didn't start getting good until he brought in Kirby, and there is some truth to that. When Eli was calling plays, it was miserable. It looked a lot like this. For those of you who watched 3 years ago, like, it looked like this. Everything was a slog, no explosives. Everything had to go perfect for them to score a touchdown. No drops, no penalties, no negative plays. It took perfection to get a touchdown. And in Kirby, and I've talked about this now a couple times, and I talked about this last year too, where I was getting nervous about this offense. 2013, Missouri hires Josh Henson. He does a great job in 2013. The 2012 team offense had a lot of injuries, but the 2013 offense was amazing. It was when Franklin was in there, it was efficient. They played Matty Mock played like 4.5 games. And it wasn't as efficient, but it remained explosive. Either way, they're putting up points. And now, and then in 2014, things got worse, and in 2025, things got worse. Now, this team is more talented than the 2015 team. That 2015 team had like Nate Brown and Jamon Moore as redshirt freshmen. Drew Lock was a freshman. The offensive line was just awful. Russell Hansbrough was on a bum ankle. Ish Witter was getting the most of the carries, and he wasn't very good until like 2017. So, it's a bad offense. It's a bad offense. Like, look, I don't care how many points you scored against Central Arkansas and Kansas and UMass and Louisiana, and some of these awful teams. When you play teams with talent level equal to yours, how do you do? 29 against South Carolina. A lot of nonsense, a lot of crap, but South Carolina just gave up 29 to Bama. That's a defense. That's a pretty good defense. So you have to take that into consideration. Understood. Okay. 24 against Bama. Okay. That's 53 points in 2 SEC games. Like, you can't be too mad at that. 23 against Auburn in overtime. Now we're starting to have some issues. Now we're up to 76 points in 3 games. Still not bad. And then 10 points against Vandy. You're averaging, like 21 and some change in SEC play? That won't do. That just won't do. This isn't college football of 2023, 2022, where with a lot of the clock rules, like if you were going to win big games, you had to score 30. You had to score 30 just because of how offenses were built and everything. You had to score 30, but because they've taken away the first down stuff for most of the game, 2 minutes, like they've shortened how many snaps you're going to get in a game. I apologize. I am very tired. If anyone who knows me knows I work an exhausting job that wears me out, and I don't even do labor. It's just people are annoying. But you need to still be able to score 28. We saw Lane go into OU and put up 36, and OU has an incredible defense. OU might have the best defense in the country. And Ole Miss went in there. How many points did they actually score? Let me be fair. And Ole Miss went in there and just stomped a mud hole in them because Ole Miss has an elite offense. That even though Lane picked the wrong quarterback, he went in there and they can run the football. Kawan Lacey looks awesome. I'm not saying it's a miss by Eli. Ahmad Hardy's awesome, but man, like Kawan Lacey's good. Look at some of these other offenses across the country. Alabama, we'll talk about them in a little later. Like, that was the most let down obvious spot of all time. I don't know if you guys follow the sport, but they played 4 conference games in a row against ranked teams, 2 on the road, a couple big rivalries in Tennessee and Georgia. They win them, and then they got to go to South Carolina. That place, credit to South Carolina fans, because that place always gets moving. That place always has a lot of energy to it. Good, bad, indifferent South Carolina football team. And it was close, but they got a win. Texas A&M, Colin Klein. I don't think Marcel Reed's very good, but they go into LSU and put up 49 on a good defense. Yeah, it's kind of, as David said, that's kind of where I'm at. I have a list of names. I'm not going to go through them. That's like a later down the line, and things pop up. And it's good with how much craziness this coaching carousel is going to have. It's hard to really pin down anything. We'll talk about the coaching carousel a little later because it's time. Like, I didn't want to talk about it a lot. Like, I wasn't going to go in and be like, all right, Eli, Florida, that's a topic we're going to talk about every week. Well, now freaking LSU's open, so we got to talk about it. But some of these other teams, like BYU, goes to Iowa State, and Iowa State's missing a couple corners but with a true freshman quarterback and puts up a crap ton of points. You have to be able to score points against teams with equal or better talent than you. And how you get those points is exploiting mismatches and getting explosive plays. That doesn't happen at Mizzou right now under Kirby Moore. It happened a couple years ago when you had a Heisman-level running back. Not an NFL guy. That happens. But you had a talented Heisman-level running back. You had a All-American wide receiver. You had a great wide receiver, too, in Theo Weiss. You had weapons all over the field. Brady Cook was dialed in, and you had a bunch of offensive linemen that got drafted. But, look around the country, man. Washington was putting up points against Illinois. Illinois's got a good defense. And, look, I know they gave up 63 to Indiana. But with context, Illinois was missing a ton of corners in that game. They were, playing third stringers at safety. They go to Washington. Washington doesn't miss a beat. Georgia Tech runs the most basic ground and pound, but they find mismatches. They exploit leverage and get explosives. Looking at Georgia Tech, they had a couple runs of 20, few passes. Haynes King, not exactly Peyton Manning back there, but they managed to get explosive passing plays. And yes, Vanderbilt's defense is better than Syracuse, but Mizzou's talent, at least out wide, is better than Georgia Tech's. You have to score points. You have to create explosives. Every week, Mizzou fans complain because Stats of War puts out the how badly did we get beat chart. And Mizzou for a few weeks was way up there. They'd kill teams like the Kansas game, for instance. And the score was a lot closer than it indicated. Bama, on the success rate meter, they outperformed Bama. On the in the Vanderbilt game, now in the Auburn game they got out of success, but we'll ignore that for now. And in the Vanderbilt game, on a down per down basis, Mizzou was the better team. More successful run plays. They didn't get stuffed quite as badly as Vanderbilt did, but explosives matter. I know every show in the offseason I talked about this. Every show this year I've talked about this. Auburn, I talked about it. South Carolina, I talked about it. This game, I'm talking about it. Bama, I'm talking about it. If you have no way to get cheap points or cheap chunk plays, exploiting leverages, finding creases, motion, doing whatever you have to do. I'm not an offensive coordinator. To find ways to get chunk plays, it doesn't matter how efficient you are because you're dealing with college kids. If 2nd and 9 means your drive's over, which for Mizzou, a lot of the times it did, or it has for 2 years, what are we doing? Don't get in a 2nd and 9, but this offense is stale. When they do hire a new offensive coordinator, which, look, they're not going to. I think there's a very high reputation. Kirby Moore has a very good reputation just because of his brother, and he has had success at Mizzou. But I would fire him. You need some, especially now that you're going to start playing 5-6 teams a year that are going to be more talented than you. You have to be different on offense. Mizzou can't run what everybody else is running. It is stale and predictable, yes. Everyone in the world knew what that 4th down play was going to be when Bo got hurt. Everybody knew. You knew exactly what they were going to run. You knew exactly what they were going to run, and they did. Because they run it all the time. Anyway, you need to be different. You can't run what everybody else runs. I expect to win at a high level at Mizzou. Vanderbilt does not run what everybody else runs. They run some really fun stuff. And they have talent. Like Pavia's, a 24-year-old, but he's a good quarterback. I don't mean that as an insult. Like he's been around, he's seen a lot, and he's a good quarterback. Eli Stowers is good. Junior Sherrill, good player. Like they have some good players, but they run some funky stuff that makes it hard to prepare. And Mizzou did an excellent job on Saturday defensively, stopping a lot of that. Ole Miss runs a lot of funky stuff. Kiffin knows how to create offenses out of nothing. We can talk about Eli later. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and spoiler the end of the show. There's a very real chance Eli Drinkwitz leaves Mizzou. I'm not predicting it. I think he stays. But there's a very real chance this happens. Keep an eye on Lane Kiffin. If Kiffin goes to LSU, I think Eli's taking Florida. But I don't know if LSU is going to hire Johnson. We'll talk about all that later when we go over kind of what's going on nationally. But this offense is not good. It's I've complained about Corey Batum before. This is the first. I honestly think Saturday was the best performance Corey Batum has had at Mizzou. I thought that defense was incredible. They didn't force a lot of negative plays, but how many times was Vanderbilt in 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7? And they don't operate that well in that against great teams or great defenses. And I do, unfortunately, Mizzou has a top 10 to 15 defense in the country. And it's unfortunate it's being wasted with this crap offense. And there's talent on this offense. Like Kevin Coleman, good player. We've seen flashes from Josh Manning. Marquise Johnson, buddy, get off my football team. I'm so tired of his pouting and his – you're showing up a freshman quarterback, dude. What are we doing? Jumping up and down and pouting because you didn't get the ball against there's talent at wide receiver. Mizzou does a decent job of getting talent. The good news is if Eli does stay, there's going to be a lot of fun stuff in the portal. So, but we'll have all offseason to talk about the portal. But I think it's time, Kirby Moore needs to go. You need to find something different offensively. I have names in mind that run a little bit of funnier stuff that's hard to prepare for, but I think it's time to move on from Kirby Moore. And now, and look, to be fair, like I said earlier, Kirby Moore does have a high, there is a lot of, he does have a very good reputation in coaching circles. And some of that, is probably fair. You might not have to fire him. He might take a job. He might get the UCLA job. He might get, another job. He has a reputation. We know he at least talked for the Arkansas job. But we'll see what happens there. The other thing I wanted to talk about, special teams. I understand Mizzou's on a backup kicker. I understand that. Believe me. I get it. I'm not blaming Eric Link for this. But Mizzou special teams is 117th in SP+. 117th. I would like to know non-field goal edition, because of course you have Mevis hitting some clutch shots. But when has Mizzou special teams been a net positive under Eli Drinkwitz? Non-field goal. And field goal is a huge part of it. When's the last time in a big game Mizzou had a big-time punt return or a kick return? To set up good field position. When's the last time they blocked a punt in a big game or I think they blocked a kick pretty recently, if I'm remembering. When has Mizzou special teams been special outside of the kicking game? And Blake Craig was not that good last year. there was a lot of expectations for him in year 2, as there should have been. Look, Mevis wasn't good like his junior year. 2022, Mevis missed a 20-yarder at Auburn that would have won the football game. The fake punt versus Kentucky. Yep, that's a good call. That's a good call. And you're only going to see those once a year, so it's not like they don't do that every game. But the fake punt against Georgia sucked. Not Georgia, excuse me. The fake punt against Georgia in 2012 sucked. The fake punt against Alabama was terrible. The return game is nothing. Like, I don't understand. I didn't understand this last year why Luther Burden was returning punts. Like, he's your best player. Why is he out there returning punts where, like, you don't ever set up returns? You don't ever get returns. The only thing that could happen with Luther Burden back there is he gets hurt. And I think the same thing with Kevin Coleman this year. Like, there are other receivers out there, or safeties or corners or whoever, that could catch a damn punt. Yeah, Eric Link probably needs to, like, maybe we'll talk about the season here in just a minute, but maybe going 8-4, 7-5 will be a bit of a wake-up call. Like, yeah, you've won a ton of close games, and now you've those. So here's the thing, man. As much as we like to believe, like, Eli does great in close games, and he does, and I think for the most part, Eli does a really good job in game management situations. End of half, end of game. I think generally he does a pretty good job compared to a lot of college coaches. I think maybe a 7-5 season after you've lost a couple of close games, but the close games thing, that always comes back around. The only program I've seen consistently able to win close games is Iowa. And unless you're churning out a top 5 defense in yards per play every year, that's just not going to happen. And you somehow become I'm going to say the word luckiest. I don't mean lucky, but you become a team that just somehow luckily forces turnovers every minute you need, like Iowa does. Those things always come back around, and now we've seen them lose 2 one-possession close games. And they won one against Auburn that they shouldn't have won, but you won that one. Probably should have beaten Vanderbilt, even with a true freshman quarterback. But maybe with a 7-5 type year, some changes are made. And one of them being, Georgia as well. I was thinking more in the realm of teams that, like, just aren't at a distinct talent advantage. But yeah, no, Georgia does do, but Kirby's awesome. And to Eli's credit, I think Eli does a really good job in a lot of those situations. I know, like, the end of the Kansas State game a couple years ago, he botched with and made a 56-yarder into a 61-yarder. It worked out, but I think generally Eli does a pretty good job. So maybe with how the season goes, and we can go ahead and pivot into this, there will be some shakeups. Now, there's rumors like Curtis Looper's getting some looks at getting a promotion at, like, Oklahoma State. That would really suck. I actually think the Mizzou position coaches offensively do generally a good job. It's weird. The offensive line didn't look so bad when Bo isn't running out of the pocket at first glimpse of another jersey. Like, Zollers had some moments and was able to it wasn't when he moved, it wasn't like a panic. He just simply shifted his feet. He shifted to the left. On the one fourth down to Josh Manning, he just shifted to the left. He knew he had pressure coming backside off his off his front side. He was able to take a couple steps to his left and fire a pass to Josh Manning. Actually, let's pivot here. I going back and I've watched every throw of his. Look, we're grading on a curve because he's a true freshman that missed most of his senior year of high school, so he has not played a real football game in months. And your first one is on the road against Clark Lee, who's a good defensive coach, on the road against a top 10 team. And I thought he looked pretty good. with that, and you come into the second half cold, I thought he looked pretty good. There's a real conversation that's going to be had down the line about next year's quarterback situation, but it's going to depend how he looks over the next 4 games. If he looks like 2015 or 16 Drew Lock, then we're going to have issues, but we'll see. Or even like 2012 Brady Cook or 2022 Brady Cook. But I thought he looked poised. He looked composed. He made a couple of throws. And on the game-winning drive, look, there's just some things that, like, he's a true freshman on the road against a top 10 team. Like, taking 12 seconds off the clock to run 5 yards. Like, that's that kind of stuff you learn as you get older. But, there's something there with this kid. And when they got him, there was a lot of hype and a lot of hope because as good as Eli has done here, quarterback has remained a bit of a for a guy that was supposed to be a quarterback whisperer because he coached like Ryan Finley at NC State. It's been a little bit of a scary because Brady Cook or Bazelak was pretty good in 22, regressed in 21. Brady Cook was awful in 22, really damn good in 23. Mid as hell last year. Same with Drew Pyne was awful last year. And Bo, after some really fun games in the non-con, was okay against South Carolina, has really struggled. And so now if Mizzou has a quarterback that they can trust to throw the ball downfield, we're going to know quickly if it was a Bo thing or an offense thing that they did not throw the ball downfield. And same with Brady Cook, because I don't know if they just didn't trust him to throw the ball downfield. And understandably, he missed every deep throw he had last year. It felt like. So we'll learn a lot about Zollers moving forward. You have to be pretty excited though with what you saw. Like, he looked good. As far as the season goes, that's kind of it. I mean, 10-2 Mizzou, I've always kind of thought would make the playoff because of how many SEC teams could still theoretically go 10-2. Like if we just rattle off the top of our head, I don't think Alabama's losing another game, so that's one. Ole Miss probably not losing another game. They go to Mississippi State, but other than that, that's 2. I don't think Vanderbilt loses to Texas and Tennessee, so that's 3. Texas A&M, I don't think is losing multiple games. I think Texas A&M is for real. So that's 4. So that's 4 playoff teams, and now you're competing with the winner of Tennessee, Oklahoma, because the loser's probably out. Texas loses to Vandy, they're out. But I don't think Georgia's going to lose another game. So that's 5. And if Georgia does, that's their second loss. And Mizzou isn't. Look, the college football playoff is stupid, and it's a TV product. If they're going to pick between Georgia and Missouri, they're going to pick Georgia. So I hate to be so negative on a Monday evening, but I think the season's about over. Some weird things need to go your way. You need to beat it, and you need to win out, which I also don't think is likely. A&M is a good team. A really, really good team. Yeah, but even if Georgia loses that game, it would be a lot more interesting if it was in Bobby Dodd instead of Mercedes-Benz. Cool. I'm glad the AD's assistant gets an extra $500 at Christmas. Thank God. Georgia Tech probably needs to keep that game close. I don't know if 10-2 Georgia Tech or 11-2 Georgia Tech gets into the playoff just because their schedule, not their fault, but it's so bad. But there's 5 SEC teams. Now craziness can happen, and you have to allow for that. But I don't think Mizzou's going to beat A&M. Let's just be fair. I don't think with Bo, Mizzou would beat A&M. I think you might have a better chance with this kid than you did with Bo. I don't think you're going to give up 1,000 points to Texas A&M. Watching that LSU A&M game, LSU has a good defense, and it kind of felt like LSU might have just let go of the rope because that offense is so miserable. Brian Kelly was about to get fired. We'll get to that here in a second. I don't know if you're going to be able to beat OU on the road. I wouldn't predict that. Mississippi State's going to come in looking for a win. Arkansas is going to want to finally beat you. We'll see where they're at mentally. They've played hard for a couple weeks. I think it's like, hey, let's win it for Petrino. Like, we want Petrino to get the job, and then you lose to Auburn like the way you did, where your offense completely stalls out in the second half. I don't think that's going to happen. Every game here is losable. Like, you could go 6-6. It is very possible you go 6-6 to end this year. And the thing about it is Eli has done a really good job on defense. We have a whole offseason to talk about the portal. You're losing a lot. Offensively, you're going to lose Coleman. You're going to lose both your tackles and your center. On defense, you're losing everybody. You're losing everybody. Like, Javion Hilson better be ready next year. Except your linebackers. Obviously, you'll bring back Rodriguez. You'll bring back Trotter. You'll bring back Beasley, as long as none of them portal out. But you're going to lose both your ends. You're going to lose McClellan. You're going to lose like Sterling Webb. You're going to lose both your corners, all your corners. You're going to lose your entire safety core except Marvin Burks, of course. And Santana Banner will be back, and Greco. Like, there's guys obviously coming back, but that's one of my worries with Eli leaving. Is this is kind of you could pull the chute because you're gonna lose a lot. I want to be confident. I want to have faith, and I do. Like, we'll see. I think this defense is good enough to keep Mizzou in the game against Texas A&M. I just don't know how many points this offense is going to score. It's probably going to take even a good defensive performance against Texas A&M. It's still probably going to take 24 to 27 points, and I have negative faith that they can get it. So, and for good reason. Like, they haven't done it consistently in SEC play this whole year, basically. Or in 2 years. I mean, kind of rare both teams. I think the SEC knew this had a chance to be a big one. Plus, A&M needs a bye. Like, they had just played some big time games, and they have a big. They go to Mizzou, and before the season, like, we thought South Carolina was going to be good, and so you get South Carolina to you play that game to, and then I think they also have. And then, of course, they have the road trip to Texas, who was preseason number 1. So I understand, like, hey, get them a bye, get them a build-up. Same with Mizzou. If they're good, which Mizzou is a good team. They just came off 2 road games, give them a bye, then they got 2 home games, 2 road games. That's the season. So we'll see what happens. You got a week to prepare them. You need 27 to 24 points. Please, God. Like, if they come out Saturday in 2 weeks, and the first 4 plays are like run, bubble screen, I'm going to break my computer. Or like, flare screen or whatever. I'm going to break my computer. Let the kid throw. Like, what do you have to lose? Anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to get at here. As you're listening to Missouri Tigers Live here at the Voice of College Football. This is Voice of College Football, Missouri Tigers. Thank you guys for coming in. Please like and subscribe. We're here every Monday, or I'm here every Monday to talk about the Missouri Tigers football program. Please visit our website, voiceofcollegefootball.com. You can listen to Missouri Tigers Live on all your favorite audio platforms. As we're going to hit the second half of the show, I think, I've spent now 2 hours talking about this Auburn-Vanderbilt game. That's not fair. Hour and a half. Or Auburn-Vanderbilt. Good Lord. I'm tired, you guys. I'm talking about this Mizzou-Vanderbilt game. I think I'm going to move off of it, and we'll have more stuff to talk about next Monday. So let's get into some notes around the SEC. Obviously, the big note is Brian Kelly has been fired by the Louisiana State Tigers. I mentioned this in a couple chats. I would not be shocked. That team they played a lot. They paid a lot for that roster. Brian Kelly now will have 4 years of NFL level quarterback play. And it just hasn't worked. I think Brian Kelly on the field is a good coach. It just never worked. I don't think it was just not a fit. And look, I don't think is a fit matters all that much in college football until you start losing. When you start losing, then it matters because you don't know how to you're not properly prepared to regain relationships, keep relationships, and really develop into that to rebound. That team's too talented to go 7-5, and that looks like they're going to go 7-5. They still have to go to OU. They still have to go to Bama. And they didn't exactly look good. Like they beat Clemson. Everybody got really excited for them. Clemson sucks. It turns out, Syracuse wins at Clemson. SMU wins at Clemson. Like everybody wins at Clemson. LSU's one of those jobs where I don't think they could poach DeBoer. I don't think they could poach Ryan Day. I don't think they could poach. Maybe. I think Dan Lanning's probably there too. Other than that, every team in the country should be worried about them getting their coach. If they like their coach. If I'm LSU, I hire John Summerall. I don't think they will. Their AD loves hiring big names. He hired Jimbo at Texas A&M. He hired Brian Kelly. He's the $100 million man in buyouts. I would just hire John Summerall. I think so. He's been around Louisiana. He's a damn good football coach. You don't have to pay him crazy money. And you can put a lot more into NIL and staffing and see what happens. I don't think Eli's really an option at LSU. I know he's like 5th or 6th in the odds. I don't think they get down to 5th or 6th in the odds. I think they're going to look at Kiffin. I think they're going to look at Summerall. I think they're going to give Joe Brady a call. I don't know if Joe Brady's going to leave the NFL for LSU. The defensive coordinator for the Lions, the Shepherd, he's going to get a call. Other than that, I don't know. If they get past that, then we're going to have some conversations about where college football is because LSU can hire basically whoever they want. And they're not going to hire Kirby, obviously. They won't hire Kirby. Duh. But yeah, LSU opens, that's just another domino to fall. I don't think they get past Lane and Joe Brady and John Summerall. So elsewhere in the SEC, Alabama, I talked about them earlier, man. That was the most obvious letdown spot ever. Hey, I'm almost done. I promise. After 4 tough road games, you go to South Carolina. Great atmosphere, but South Carolina. And you get a win. You escape with a win. I thought Ole Miss basically punched themselves into the playoff with that win over Oklahoma. I just don't see Ole Miss is 7-1. I think 4-2 gets them in. I don't see them losing home games to South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida, and I don't think they'll lose Mississippi State. Now, Lane does have a propensity to court games, so you can't call him a lock, but it feels like they're not going to be an underdog in any more games. Tennessee somehow gives up 34 points to Kentucky. I didn't watch a lick of that game. I'm going to keep it honest with you. You gave up a 71-yard pass. Oh, my God. Even Kentucky's hitting explosives. 71-yard pass, 56-yard pass, 28-yard pass. J.J. Hester caught a touchdown. Former Missouri Tiger. Good for him. They let Carter Bully throw for 330 and 5 touchdowns. Boy, Tim Banks is a good DC, but I would not be happy with that performance. Oh, my God. That low-key, I just got even madder at Kirby more. And then Arkansas loses to Florida because, of course, they do. Neither are how many Taylor Green, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. I like Taylor a lot. That's ugly. Damn. pick six kind of changed that game. I watched a little bit of that game, but Texas wins at comes back against Mississippi State. Look, no one's gonna like hearing this. The Texas Longhorns are alive, and here's the deal, folks. Depending on Arch Manning's injury situation, here's the thing: they play Vanderbilt, they get him at home. They go to Georgia, they got Arkansas, and they play Texas A&M at home. I know we all joke, "Oh, Texas is dead." They can win all those games, and they do. They're in. So this week in the SEC. You got Vandy, Texas. That's a really fun game. That should be on plastered on everybody's television across the country instead of Penn State, Ohio State. Georgia, Florida, whatever, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Interesting-ish. Like, the reason that game's interesting because if Mississippi State loses that game, there's a good chance they fire Jeff Lebby after the year. You can't go 0-8 in back-to-back years. Oklahoma, Tennessee, elimination game. The Kentucky, Auburn, like, surely if they lose this one, they can't keep Hugh Freeze because that job's opening up. Yeah, Texas deep. Like, and look, Mizzou gave him the blueprint, man. Like, just muck it up, stop the run, and sure, you might give up an explosive or two unless you're playing Missouri, but you're going to be okay. I'm going to get into more coaching search stuff here in just a moment, but national notes. I don't have a ton really to talk about. This was kind of a chalky weekend. Indiana and Ohio State are Death Stars. I think Texas A&M is quickly approaching Death Star status. Miami slow start, but they got onto a roll against Stanford. So, look, Miami's a really good team. BYU, man, I crapped on BYU a lot. I called them frauds. They keep winning games, and Bachmeier's getting better. He's just getting better every game. So they're a real threat in the Big 12. Obviously, say it was Texas Tech. Virginia, pardon my language, what horseshoe do they? I wish Mizzou had the horseshoe Virginia Tech got up their ass once ever. 3 overtime games? Are you kidding me? And you won them all? Good on you. But, happy for Virginia. That's the one thing. And this is Cope. And I said this in a chat. It is kind of nice, because I know where Mizzou slots, I don't have to root against BYU. I don't have to root against Georgia Tech, or Virginia. I can root for these teams. BYU, Texas Tech in a couple of weeks. It's going to be fun. I can root for these teams. Cincinnati, Louisville's hanging around. The ACC race is going to be a lot of fun. Washington, Washington. Here's another team that we're just not talking about because they lost to Ohio State and they lost to Michigan. They play Wisconsin this week, or after the bye, they get Wisconsin. They got Purdue. They go to UCLA. They'll win all those games, and then they host Oregon. Playoff spot on the line in Seattle that weekend. Houston. If Eli leaves, I'd give Willie Fritz a call. He probably won't take it because he's 63, and I think he really likes Houston. It's not always pretty. That man just wins football games. He just wins football games. They're 7-1. They're 7-1 over in Houston, led by Connor Wegman, who, if you just watch Mizzou, you'll think Connor Wegman is football Jesus. But this week around the country, another not a great week. Penn State, Ohio State, whatever. Miami at SMU is an interesting one. That's a tricky game. I know SMU just lost to Wake Forest in a clear look-ahead spot for them. And Wake Forest isn't bad. Wake Forest, Jake Dickert. So I'm not going to go all into my coaching list if Eli were to leave. I would be okay if Mizzou called Jake Dickert. He's got Wake freaking Forest at 5-2. I think Jake Dickert's a hell of a football coach. So he's a name, if just put a pin in that. If Mizzou were to lose Eli, I would fully support them calling Jake Dickert. What are there any? There's not just this is West Virginia. Houston's going to win again, so they're going to be at 8-1 because they play West Virginia, who sucks. Louisville, Virginia Tech, whatever. Indiana, Maryland. Mike Loxley needs to get out of Maryland. Notre Dame, they get another bye week playing Boston College. Texas Tech goes to this. I'm just going through the notes. Texas Tech at Kansas State. If you get to Kansas State now, you've gotten for a couple weeks. That quickly becomes an interesting game. they're starting to play more like the team we thought that Kansas State would be coming into the year, not the team that lost to Army. Virginia goes to Cal. Sneaky fun game at 2:45 on ESPN2. Virginia wins that one. Playoff push is on because they'd be 8-1. They get Wake, they go to Duke, and they get Virginia Tech. And personally, what I think is the most fun, interesting game of the day, Georgia Tech at NC State. NC State is not good. They can score. Georgia Tech's going to have to score some points. That's going to be a really fun football game. I think, and especially because it's in Raleigh. I think that's going to be really fun. CJ Bailey, Hollywood Smothers, some of the receivers they got over there. That's just going to be a fun football game. Oklahoma, Tennessee, we already talked about. USC, the USC and Nebraska play an elimination game. That is full on an elimination game. Losers out, winner, you still got some life. In Nebraska, I don't think it's too tough of a schedule left. They go to UCLA, they got Penn State, and they got Iowa. If you're a Nebraska fan, like that loss to Minnesota sucked, but like you're hanging on. You're hanging on. And then Cincinnati goes to Utah. I know College Game Day's heading to Salt Lake again. I think someone mentioned that. I don't know. Like I obviously watched football Saturday, but I was just to really pay attention to a lot of the minute stuff. Cincinnati's a good football team. That's a Big 12. They lose. They're still in the thick of the Big 12 race. With a win, Cincinnati vaults towards the top of the Big 12 race because they still have no losses. And they should have beaten Nebraska, man. This football team should be 8-0 heading into Salt Lake. Like, that's crazy they lost that game. So the final thing I'm going to talk about is Eli. We've talked about it enough. This is just, but with the LSU job opening up, you just have to keep talking about it. I hope no one gets fired this week because Monday I would like to not talk about a coaching search. Mizzou fans should be prepared that Eli Drinkwitz will not be the coach in 2025. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I don't know anybody like crazy. Like I don't have those kind of connections. But I do know some people, and they both have said, look, Florida's all in on Lane. If they can't get Lane, they're going to give Eli some calls. And Eli is interested in the Florida job. And I can't blame him. Every conversation on Twitter, and especially, or if Lane goes to LSU, which is also very possible. Every conversation I see on Twitter is like, well, why would Eli want to go to some place where they'll fire you if you go 8-4? Guys, no coach is walking into a situation like Florida or LSU thinking, I'm going to go 8-4. They all think they're going to win the national title. These guys, the egos on these guys, and you have to have it, is insane. You just have to be prepared. And I've have some names in mind should the moment arise where Mizzou does need a new college football coach. But we're not going to talk about those yet because it hasn't even happened. So I think a new OC needs to happen, but we'll see when we get there. So with this week being a bye week, there will be no show Saturday. So enjoy your Halloween, enjoy your baseball, your hockey. Blues are losing again. Figure it out. I know we're only like 8 games into the season. But enjoy your baseball, your hockey, your football, your college football on Saturday. Enjoy your basketball if that's what tickles your fancy. But enjoy. Like, take a breath, man. Like, look, it sucks that Mizzou season feels like it might be over. But we've been here before. We watched after the Bama game last year. It was like, oh, we suck. Like, okay. But with next week, that is what we're going to do, actually. Just like last year when Mizzou played at Memphis and we all went, oh, God, this team sucks, or this team might not be very good, to, oh, this team's top 15 in the country, back to, whatever. But we will be watching Mizzou basketball with Howard. We will still start the show at 7. So we will watch the second half of the game. I still got to eat and do stuff when I get home from work, but no, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for the Mizzou basketball team this year. I think they're interesting. I don't know if they have the ceiling they did that I thought they did last year, where I thought last year, like I was really convinced that team was good going into the year. With some of the stuff they added, we'll see. I'm pretty excited about them, but this isn't a basketball show, unfortunately. If you want to talk Mizzou basketball, you can follow me on Twitter, and I will gladly talk Mizzou basketball with you. I've been watching Rock M Nation does all these like player preview videos. I've been watching those at work. They're excellent. Matt Watkins does a great job with those. So shout out to them. Here's where you can follow me on Twitter. If you do want to talk Mizzou basketball, but I think it's going to be a fun year for the boys. Like, we'll see. I don't know if I'm not I think they're going to be good, but if they're not a tournament team, that wouldn't be like the craziest thing I've ever seen. So you guys all have a great weekend. Enjoy your Halloween. Enjoy your sports. Enjoy, everything that comes with this time of year. I will see you all next Monday. And thanks for tuning in, MIZ. And hey, man, this weekend's just another day in the life.